Welcome. My name is Kelly Anderson, and this is Fanimated, the animation fan podcast where we get a chance to geek out about our favorite animated media. This week, Kate Callan and Laura Wacker-Hansen are joining me to discuss the 1992 Disney animated film Aladdin. We are so excited to share our thoughts with you, and as always, watch out for spoilers ahead. So let's get started and let's get animated. Hello, Kate.
Hi.
Hello, Laura.
Hi.
Welcome, Laura. This is your first time on the podcast, so I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you.
And how are you guys doing?
Really good.
Yeah, we're doing great.
Great. And you guys just watched Aladdin, this evening.
Yep.
Yes.
So you're ready.
We are very ready.
I feel like Kate and I have talked about this before. My opinion changes basically every day, but who my favorite Disney princess is.
Uh-huh.
So what are yours right now? Personally, I'm feeling attached to Rapunzel right now, so I'm going to go with her, but I like a lot of them for lots of different reasons.
Have you been watching Tangled, the series, a lot recently?
Exactly, which is why I say Rapunzel right now.
Uh-huh. Always and forever, my favorite will be Ariel. I just was watching Aladdin triggered the memory that, anytime I see one of those, BuzzFeed quizzes or whatever, Oh My Disney or whatever site, it's which Disney princess are you? I feel like however many of those quizzes that I've taken, usually about 70% of the time, the answer is always Jasmine.
Oh, cool.
I've gotten, I think I've gotten Rapunzel and Tiana other times, but most of the time it's Jasmine, and I always thought that was kind of weird because I don't particularly feel a connection to Jasmine. As much as I do some of the other ones, obviously I really love Ariel. I love Rapunzel.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of my faves. And we talked about Cinderella, too.
Yeah. Go listen to our Cinderella episode.
Yeah, do it. It's really overly in depth. You never knew you could analyze Cinderella so hard, but we did.
Why do you think those quizzes connect you with Jasmine? What traits do they say are similar to you?
I think she can be kind of painted as kind of helpless in most situations. She has a crush on this guy and she finds out that he's quote unquote dead and she just goes off in a room and cries about it, and it seems kind of just she's a one-off Disney princess, but she does have a lot of determination and kind of stubbornness and kind of a stronger will than I think a lot of other Disney princesses, at least to that point, had. And she's pretty sassy too. She's willing to fight for the ones that she loves, like Aladdin and her father, and I think that kind of resonates with my personality a little bit because I'm really stubborn. And I fight for the people that I love really hard.
You do. Aw. Laura, who's your favorite Disney princess?
I feel like I have three.
Great.
I think my childhood favorite was Pocahontas, for sure. Pocahontas came out when I was in kindergarten, and I just thought that she was the neatest person. And I loved, my family did a lot of camping, and we're a very outdoorsy family, so I used to love to play Pocahontas in the woods when I was little.
Fun.
My middle school self loved Belle. She was my favorite. She is who I always get when I take those stupid quizzes online. And I think my current favorite since it came out is definitely Merida. I love Merida.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Brave is such a good film.
It's one
really
of
good
my
movie.
favorites. I thought it was very refreshing that it was about a mother and a daughter.
Yes, and we don't get a lot of those. The mother's always dead for some reason.
Yes, not sure why.
Yeah.
No.
No.
The Aladdin included.
Yes.
So yeah, we're talking about Aladdin, the 1992 Aladdin, not the new 2019 one.
Which hasn't come out yet.
Which hasn't come out yet, but we're excited to see that one as well. It's okay if you're not excited to see it. So, what are your guys' memories of Aladdin? Did you grow up watching it? Is it one of those that you had a VHS tape in your home?
That was one of the ones that I grew up watching. I have memories from, before I was I think before even I was in school, of being in my first family house. And, like, I have this memory of Aladdin playing on the TV and my brother going out the door to get on the bus to go to school. Mm-hmm. So it's been one of those movies that's just always been in rotation throughout my whole life, pretty much. I mean, it came out, like, the year I was born, so...
So I'm a little older than you guys. And I actually remember going to see Aladdin in the theater with my mom and my older brother. Wow. My grandma came over and babysat my little sister. And my mom took us to, like, an 11 a.m. showing of it when we were little. Wow. And I remember my brother being specifically excited because it was about a guy, and it was named after a guy. Mm-hmm. And it had been a while since one of those had come out. And I just as a child remember being, like, completely visually, like, overly stimulated by it. And just thought that it was so cool and so, like, a fantasy and so entertaining. And I know that my mom really liked it because she felt like there was a lot of adult humor in it as well compared to some of the ones that came before it that she was taking us to. And so that really is, like, my first memory of Aladdin is actually going to the theater with my mom and seeing it. And then we had the big, like, foamy covered, VHS of it.
Yeah.
That all the Disney movies came in when we were little, and we watched it a lot. We did a lot of, like, little sister napping movie time, and that was one of the ones that was in the regular rotation.
We had the VHS growing up, and I watched it a lot. It probably wasn't the most watched of the Disney movies we had, but it was definitely up there for sure. And I was always a little bit, scared by the Cave of Wonders.
Oh, yes.
Always freaked me out a lot. So, yeah. But it's very well done. So, Laura, if you're comfortable, would you, since this is your first time, give the audience, if they haven't seen the 1992 Aladdin, give us a brief synopsis of what it's about.
Okay, so Aladdin is about Aladdin, who is a quote-unquote street rat, who is kind of a homeless street wanderer, scrappy guy who lives in Agrabah, right? Agrabah. Mm-hmm. And it is the story of how he rises from being a street rat to being married to the princess and potentially becoming the sultan.
Mm-hmm. I would assume.
And the journey that he goes on. And throughout that journey, I feel like we're going to talk about the whole thing. It's not that, like, go see it to figure out the end kind of thing. How he realizes that he doesn't need anything special. Himself is what makes him qualified to win the princess and be the sultan, even though he's just a lowly street rat. So it's watching him on that journey and all of the fun characters that come in and out of that.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you. That was perfect. Speaking of excellent characters, just right off the bat, at the beginning of the show, you have the really weird little merchant guy trying to sell you the lamp. Let's talk about that interesting segue into the story. Like,
you can go first, Laura.
Okay. So it was the first thing I wrote down in my little notes. I think that it's an important part of the movie as a whole because Aladdin was one of the first of, like, that grouping of Disney movies that broke the fourth wall a lot and talked to the audience and had a lot of jokes that were not part of the storyline written into it. A lot of Robin Williams dialogue is very breaking of the wall.
Yes.
And I thought that was a really important way to set up how the film was different than other films.
Yes, because previously it was still, we're telling you a story, but we're going to open the magic fairy tale book and tell you the story. And this is like, okay, we are still telling you this story, this legend of this lamp, and the story that's connected with this lamp, but immediately you see that it's, like, different. This is a different kind of fairy tale because it's this quirky guy telling you this story.
And I feel like it's pretty common knowledge that the street vendor in the beginning is voiced by Robin Williams, who, the incredible late Robin Williams, who is obviously so famous for voicing the genie. And if you go online and they have a lot of information about his process through the movie, I think that beginning scene in particular is pretty funny because I think up into, I mean, he was so versatile in his career, right? He could do drama and comedy and stand-up and all this stuff, and he, what they kind of wrote about that scene in particular is that they basically put a bunch of items under a sheet on a table and told him to pick each one up individually and do improv on it, and most of the material they couldn't use because it was too inappropriate for kids. Which I think is hysterical.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just such a wonderful way to kind of introduce the film, and it does deviate from the rest of the kind of fairy tale films, the introductions. Like, I mean, Beauty and the Beast came out the year before, and that it's not like the old Disney movies where the storybook opens and there's the print, but they do kind of start with a Once Upon a Time kind of thing, and it's just kind of like Aladdin is technically not really a fairy tale. It's more of like a kind of myth almost, but it just kind of, I think it lends a nice tone to the beginning of the film and kind of makes it a little stand out from some of the other films of the same kind of quality.
And it pairs well with the beautiful Arabian Nights song at the very beginning that really draws you into, like, this is a really kind of interesting, it's nighttime in the beginning.
Yes.
So it seems very mysterious. You have this little guy, and then you go out to the Cave of Wonders. So it's this nice little, like, we've set up where we are, he's going to introduce the story, and then we go to this kind of scary place afterwards, and he's a nice little segue.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really great introduction to the setting and, like, where you are and what this is, because it is so different. I love it.
The first character we meet is Jafar.
Yeah.
And I have to say that the way they introduced him, I personally was scared completely out of my mind by Jafar as a child. I thought he was terrifying throughout the entire movie. There was nothing about his character that softened him, or, like, even the fact that his best friend was a talking parrot did not to make him less scary. And the way they introduced him outside the Cave of Wonders and really set him up as the bad guy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the bad guy usually enters after the hero in a lot of shows, and they chose to introduce him first.
Yes.
And they were kind of setting up who Aladdin was by doing that, but that was especially, and I draw a lot on my experience of watching it as a child, that it made it, again, really scary. It's nighttime, this really exotic music is playing, and now we're going to this scary place with this really terrifying guy.
Yeah.
And he's really evil. And I thought that was a really interesting introduction of him.
Yeah.
And you just knew right away that it was going to be scary and bad.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, and that goes so beautifully into the introduction of Aladdin, right? Because, you know, they use this phrase "diamond in the rough," and that's, like, exactly what he is. You know, you see him stealing this bread, and you're like, whoa, he is rough. Like, he does have some problems. And it's, like, it's a great segue into kind of going on that journey with him and seeing that transformation.
Yeah, and I love that even though he's stealing bread and he's doing something wrong, they still show that he's, like, kind and generous, and he just has to do what he has to when he gives the bread to the children that are suffering even more than him. Plus, it's just a fun song.
One Jump Ahead is a great song.
You know, the other thing that I was thinking of when we were just watching it, because I was trying to pay a lot of attention to the animation, because that's what we're talking about. And I thought that it was really interesting, and I have no idea if this means anything, and I'm being too excited about symbolism, but that entire song deals with him. He is constantly trying to move upwards and then jumping out of windows and jumping down. And he starts the scene, it's bright, he's on top of the buildings, and the song ends with him down literally in the shadows in the gutter with his bread. And he's just trying to get out of the gutter and move into the light, and they push him down again.
Oh my god.
And it's like this, that's part of introducing his character of who he is, and he's, like, struggling, you know?
I love that 100%. And that, I mean, yes, and that is such a good insight, because I hadn't even thought of that. But of course, that's entirely intentional. That he does. He, like, starts out in the light, and it's like that really, really great contrast to Jafar. And like, he is this whole movie, he is trying to like, you know, get up there, and then he falls back down, and he's just trying to get out of his social situation that he's in. And it like, even though it feels triumphant, it's almost not, because he still ends up in the gutter, like he's still that street rat. And that's like, that's the lie the world and himself has told him that he can't get out of.
Yep.
That he's trying to escape from. Oh, it's so good. So going along with characters, how do you guys like Jasmine as one of the official Disney princesses? Like, how do you like, or, you know, what do you think of her role in the story, and what do you think of her, you know, I guess comparatively to other Disney princesses too?
I think up until that point, she was very different than the other Disney princesses, because she is really stubborn and really kind of set in her ways. She wasn't like a Snow White who was sitting around waiting for her prince to come. Like, she was rejecting all of these guys, going, you know, like, you're just putting on an act for me. You're trying to win me over, but it's not gonna work. Like, if we don't have a connection with one another, like, no matter what your ranking is, like, this isn't gonna work for me. And I think kind of up until that point, we hadn't really seen, I mean, maybe Ariel was kind of close to that, because she was kind of strong-willed too, but I think up until that point, in the, quote, Disney princess lineup, we hadn't really seen someone with her kind of fight.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really good quality. I did read a little bit as we were watching the movie. I wrote it down in my notes here. They had kind of their mapping out of the story, they had planned for Jasmine to be a more active character in it. In particular, I think they mentioned a scene where she was going to confront her father about something. And then they mentioned another scene in the hourglass at the end, when the sand is piling up. They were going to create a sequence where she breaks herself out instead of Aladdin being the hero to break her. Break her out, I should say. But that would have required extra animation that they just didn't want to do. So they, instead of like this scene that they had planned with her and her father, they just had her like run off crying. Which I'm a little like, ugh, guys.
I know.
You had the opportunity and you wasted it.
And it's, you know, that opens up a whole door, because it definitely has gotten better. Like, you can tell with a lot of these films, and even with Frozen, like having a woman as directing. But it was, even then, even in the 90s, still in transition, and it still is, with men being the animators, and more women are getting into the field and getting into the rooms where they're making those choices. And so even in Aladdin, you can see that. And I'm interested to see, hopefully the remake, you know, brings it up a notch, turns it up a notch.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actress that's playing Jasmine in the new film, I've seen her in some stuff before, and I think she is a very good choice for Jasmine. I'm really excited to see what her choices will be in the film, and hopefully they'll kind of amp her up a little bit as a character.
I have to say, if we're going to keep talking about Jasmine just for a second, one of the things that I think is interesting about her is she is, at least, again, from my memory of watching movies, she was the first Disney princess that started as a princess in like a I live in a palace sense of a princess.
Yes.
And Aladdin was the one who became something else. And I think that was, especially like you said, at the time when they weren't really looking to necessarily make a big, bold statement, I thought that was a really interesting choice. And instead of her, you know, I'm going to become a princess when I meet the prince and marry him, she was already a princess. And they were kind of making that statement of like, it's not, being a princess isn't, like, doesn't make everything great. She literally says, maybe I don't want to be a princess anymore, to her father.
Right.
In one of the first scenes that we see her. And I think that is an interesting way to introduce that character. I think the character is animated to look a lot older than she is, which doesn't help the way that I think she acts in a large part of the story. I think that she looks like a 30-year-old woman in the animation, and she's supposed to be 16 or 17 years old.
Yeah.
So I think that also, looking at it as an adult, is kind of frustrating. I don't think that she looks youthful enough to act the way that she acts.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's an interesting way to start the story with Aladdin being the little pauper, and she's the princess.
Yeah, that's an excellent point too, because, I guess it usually would before that be the opposite. Mm-hmm. So that's very cool. What are some of your other favorite characters in this film?
I'm going to introduce this, and I'm going to let Kate talk about it, because we both wrote this in our notes. We talked a lot when we were watching it about how I really think Aladdin was, like, the most successful usage of talking animal friends that didn't make it weird. Like, the animal friends didn't, like, oh, kids movie, talking animal. Like, Abu is great. Is it Apu or Abu?
It's Abu.
Abu. Abu is great. Raja, I wanted Raja when I was little. I thought he was the best thing ever. Iago, like I said, is so... The writing and what they let Gilbert Gottfried do with him didn't make Jafar seem silly.
Which could have easily happened.
Yeah.
Fine.
And then the carpet. It's like you animated a carpet to somehow have a personality. Yes. And be like a really important part of this story, and he's a carpet. So I think that this... When you look at all the other, like, the little talking animals because it's Disney, this was one of, like, the most effective usage of those characters, and they made them really cool characters that didn't, like, make the story about kids.
100% agree.
Yeah. I mean, piggybacking off that, like, I always kind of, when watching this movie, I'm always kind of on the fence about Iago. I'm like, oh, he's so funny, but do I really like him? He's hanging out with Jafar. Like, that's kind of... But what he does with the character, like you said, I mean, it doesn't make Jafar any less menacing, but he's just such a good character, and I think that's kind of part of the character is kind of not knowing whether he's gonna flip to the good side or, like, kind of keep going with what Jafar is doing, and even the animals that don't talk, Abu, Raja, the carpet, like, somehow you just, like, care about them deeply without them saying a word, and that's such credit to the animators and their choices of, you know, character work with these animals, and, you know, the relationship between Aladdin and Abu is so sweet, and the relationship with Raja and Jasmine is kind of parallel to that, and the carpet is just so much fun.
Yes.
The carpet acts like a dog.
Yeah.
They clearly animated it using, like, the way that a dog acts, I think, because it acts like the cute little puppy that got found at the pound, like, the pound. When he finds it in the cave, it's like, so, it's like the sad puppy at the pound.
He, like, does cartwheels really for joy.
Yes. Yeah. And they gave it a personality somehow, and I just, you know, all the other animated characters, and I think, you know, Pocahontas was one of my favorites as a child, but Flit and Miko didn't need to be there.
No.
Like,
right. They weren't as important to the story.
Yeah, and they were silly. They did silly things, whereas, you know, these characters weren't necessarily silly. And the parts that they had weren't, like, stupid entertaining bits. The thing that I think of is when Iago is in with all of the flamingos. Like, I'm laughing right now thinking about it. He's got that nose on. He's like, "Are you staring at me, Pinky?" And he, like, hits him across the... He's just so funny. And such a great part of the storyline. Yeah.
Yeah, and what you said, Kate, about, you know, most of those companion characters don't say anything. And it really just goes to show, animators have to be actors, too, because that's what they're doing. They're acting these characters, but through a different medium, and absolutely. They do a very good job.
They do.
Speaking of, animating a character, I think we need to talk about Genie.
Yeah.
Because Genie is the star.
Best part.
It's called Aladdin. It's about Aladdin, but
it's the Genie.
This movie is about Genie.
It's Robin Williams.
And just how, I mean, I don't think that I have ever seen a better marriage of voice actor, and character. I have seen a lot of examples of people animating a character after a voice, and not a true marriage of a vision for a character with the right voice. And obviously there's a lot of Robin Williams' physicality in the Genie, but they're a combination. And I think that that's when you have a really strong voice actor or a really recognizable voice actor, sometimes they can rely a little bit too much on just going the easy route and kind of copying, making it about, it's kitschy. It's, this person is doing this. Isn't this funny? That's how you advertise it. How many animated movies do we see where they're like, so-and-so voicing this? And it's like...
Yes, it's all about the big name.
Yes.
Well, this was like the first example of that, right? Up until this point, they were just casting the actors that they had seen fit for the voice. Casting Robin Williams, yes, he was the perfect marriage for the Genie. He was a perfect voice actor. But that kind of started what you see now in every single animated movie. It's title of animated movie, voice actors that are very famous and well-known over the top. And this was kind of what got started that ball rolling.
But nothing will ever be as good as
Nothing will ever be as good as this movie, though.
Kate, you had taken some notes about just the process of working with Robin Williams to create Genie.
I did. The couple things that... Because as we were watching it, we were talking about, like, the process, and on IMDb they said that they had over 16 hours of improvised content of Robin Williams doing whatever he's doing, and it disqualified them for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars because most of it was improvised, and they couldn't submit his stuff within the script because it deviated so far from what they had written. So I mean, we got a marvelous piece of art, but unfortunately they did not get there.
Well, I also don't necessarily think the Oscars is all that anyway. So
that's true.
Truth.
Especially their history with animation does not stand well.
This deviates so far from what we're talking about. I really believe there should be a category for especially now with so much film with actors doing the CGI work. I mean, Andy Serkis is one of the most incredible performers, and half of his film repertoire is him in a little suit with balls on it and not even seeing his face on screen. And I so think that there should be a category for some kind of, like, voice work or animated work or what have you. I don't know what they would qualify it as, but, like, this is a perfect example. This film is a perfect example of that. Robin Williams deserves every single accolade for this movie ever.
Yeah, Kate and I had been talking about Genie and how I wanted to talk about him a lot. I think that a lot of that improv led to a lot of the breaking of the fourth wall in the movie and talking directly to the audience, making jokes that were funny to the audience that had nothing to do with the storyline. He does a Rodney Dangerfield impression. He does a Jack Nicholson impression that they animated into the movie for parents, obviously. They add little things that are also jokes for kids that clearly came off of his improv. When he tells a lie and his face turns into Pinocchio, when he's in the cookbook and he pulls Sebastian out of the cookbook. Those were things that I remember as a child thinking were so funny, and it added to the enjoyment of watching it. And it, the music that he sings, the songs that he sings, everything that he adds into them. One of the things that always comes to mind is during the entrance into Agrabah, the Prince Ali song, when he's commentating like it's the Thanksgiving parade, like, look at the feathers, Joe, and I love it.
Is it like Joan Rivers or something?
I don't know. But it's so funny. And I think that and this is kind of like, I don't know if I'm going again too deep here, But I think that was a really fun first exposure as a child for me to comedic acting and people that really like did funny things and did improv. Kate and I have talked a lot about like my inspirations for whenever I go on stage or the way I like to sing or the way that I like to perform. And I'm inspired by a lot of comedians who are also actors. So I love Kate McKinnon and I love Melissa McCarthy. And I really, really love Robin Williams and Jim Carrey. And watching this again as an adult, one of the things I mentioned to Kate is like, I would absolutely love to play Genie on stage.
Yeah.
I'm a tenor, so I could sing it. But it's just that complete, the way that the animators were able to capture the freedom of movement and the way that his mind darts around. Again, with having it be Genie and not be Robin Williams, because he was doing things that a human can't do. He's a genie, right? And they married that so perfectly. And I look at that now and it's like, that was the first time I really saw that. I wasn't watching comedians as a child. So that was the first time that I was really exposed to this very different type of actor and character. And I think that that's kind of cool.
That is awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as characters go, I want to just mention one that actually isn't in the film at all, and that is Aladdin's mother. They originally wrote her into the show, and that's where Proud of Your Boy, they originally wrote it for the film and added it to the stage version later. But that is one of my favorite Disney songs, period. And I know it's not a part of the movie, but I just wanted to say that, and I love that is still, even though it's not so present in that film, it's still part of Aladdin's character, of that he wants, he wants more, and he wants to, I still think, even though it's not mentioned as much in the film, but that he wants to make his mother proud, and he wants to make his parents proud, even though they're not there.
I just wrote down in my notes during the One Jump Ahead reprise, I just wrote, Kelly loves Proud of Your Boy. That's all I wrote.
Because I do. Oh, man. And you should really watch it. You can look on YouTube. The original storyboards for that song, it's absolutely beautiful. Right. So the lyricist, Howard Ashman, died in 1991. So didn't even live long enough for the film to come out. But yeah, it was one of those songs that was very important to him, from his personal life. And I just remember watching a video at some point about the film and about the musical and how they were so excited to bring Proud of Your Boy back because it was so important to him, and he passed and wasn't able to, see that song come to life like it has now.
It's so stunning.
And I think that's, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go for it.
I think that's one of the things that is interesting when we were just talking about how Robin Williams, like this movie is about Genie and Robin Williams, that they got so much great content from him that when you look at what ended up being edited out and things that didn't make it into the movie, things like storyline development, not wanting to animate extra things for Jasmine, not putting songs in that were really beautiful, touching songs, and that, like, as wonderful as it turned out, the things that they maybe had to sacrifice to get some of that in there was that would have been a hard choice to make.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. Speaking of music, what is your favorite song in the film?
Oh, man. Ugh. I just love A Whole New World. That's
Me
my
too.
favorite.
We had a sing-along.
We did. We sang into each other's eyes and sang A Whole New World.
Again, when one of the roommates is a soprano and the other is a female tenor, you can sing that song together really beautifully.
Yes.
I mean, no surprise, Friend Like Me is my absolute favorite song, and I just think that it's the story that's told and how crazy it is and all the fun animation that they got to do during that song was really just extraordinary. And that it's a song that introduces a character, and it's not a very long song, and you know exactly who the genie is by the time it's over.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it always ends faster than you want it to end, in my opinion. It's like, wow, this was this maybe 1.5, 2 minute part of this movie, and we know exactly who he is and everything that he can do.
I love that. It is a wonderful, wonderful song. And it turns this, like, very, this very scary and crazy moment that just happened. They're trying to escape the cave, and then they're stuck, and you're like, and then it becomes this crazy fun introduction to Genie, and I do like that a lot. All the songs are good.
Mm-hmm.
But I would agree with Kate. I love A Whole New World so much. It's just like, don't you want that? Don't you want someone to sweep you off your feet, literally, and, like, take you? And
it's such a beautifully animated sequence, too, as they're, like, flying through the clouds.
Yeah.
Like, who doesn't want someone that they're romantically interested in to just throw them on a rug and fly off into the sky and have a romantic date with them? Like,
yeah,
that sounds perfect to me.
And I think that that's the fun part of the freedom. And I keep coming back here, but I really do believe that that's what makes this movie so unique, is they just kind of threw out a lot of the rules and animated things that they thought would be cool. And you see that in Friend Like Me, and you see it in A Whole New World, when they whip the cloud into the ice cream cone.
Yes.
When she pets the little baby horse. Like, I thought that was so cute when I was little. And they're going all over the world, and that's how the Sphinx's nose fell off.
Yeah.
Like, that to me is just, it seems like the entire process for this movie, like, the animators had so much fun. Like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if the Sphinx's nose fell off?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be funny if you whipped it into an ice cream cone? Wouldn't it be funny if all this stuff just appeared? Like, that'd be fun to animate. And it just seems like they had the freedom to do that in this story. And I think that's one of the reasons why we love the songs, we love watching it, is they just got to do whatever they wanted with it, and it made you care about the characters, and it made really great songs like that so much better, you know?
Yeah. Well, and kind of jumping off of that with kind of the freedom in the animation, I think another great example of that is the Cave of Wonders sequence. I, like, even just watching it, it's so... I just think that whole thing is so beautifully animated. And we were watching kind of an updated Blu-ray version.
Oh, interesting.
And so you can kind of see the tweaks that they've made, because now that the technology has kind of caught up. I mean, it was 1992. There's... I mean, watching kind of older versions, whether you had it on VHS or, like, I have a DVD copy from, I don't even know how long ago, but you can still kind of see those traces of, like, oh, this is kind of where the CGI and the hand-drawn animation don't quite match up.
Yes.
And it's interesting having that version kind of seared into my head from having watched it over so long, and then watching kind of the updated Blu-ray version in that sequence is kind of like, okay, like, they're able to kind of meld that a little better now, so it doesn't look quite as obvious. But that sequence is just so cool with him, like, I think they do a great job with not only the animation, but, like, kind of building up the suspension. Like, you don't quite know if he's going to escape or not. And it does a great... It's cool that they were able to use that kind of technology when it was so, for lack of a better word, primitive at the time.
Oh, absolutely. This was early.
Yeah, and that just elevates that sequence so much more. But it's like it's scary, and it's kind of fun to watch at the same time, because it's just like a roller coaster ride. But I mean, I think that's kind of another example of that, where they were just able to kind of, okay, here's the sequence that we're envisioning. What can we throw in here to make it so much more exciting than just, like, trying to escape?
And it is like a roller coaster. And because it has all the lava in it, did you guys ever go, or maybe they had changed it to something else, because I'm older than you, but it was still Camp Snoopy at the Mall of America at the time, the new ride that was the big hit that my dad took me because he wanted to go on it was the Mystery Mine ride.
Yes.
And it's that little theater where they did a really creepy dinosaur one, but it was this very, like, CGI'd screen and the chairs moved. So they have those at Disney now, and all of those kind of experiences
I know
where
what
you
you're
move.
talking about.
But they did one, the very first one was called the Mystery Mine Ride, and you were, like, in a mine cart trying to escape a mine.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what that Aladdin sequence looks like. And so in my head, I'm almost like, were you, like, also planning rides at Disney World while you were doing this? Because it looks like an escape route of a roller coaster, or, like, a really fun, like, action adventure sequence.
It does.
And I do not know very much about animation, but one of the things that was so cool about that I would in my very rudimentary understanding of animation, is getting the chance to create a 3-dimensional world for your character to travel through instead of a flat world that you were trying to make something move through, and how exciting that must have been for the artists to be able to create like a large physical space to move a character through.
I love watching it because it looks so rudimentary, because you're just like, look how far we've come.
Absolutely.
You know, like, it makes me excited. And yeah, you get to, like, explore this bigger world.
From the perspective of a character, because I feel like in a
Yes.
lot of other earlier animated things, you watched a character go past on, like, a horizontal plane, because it was probably a little easier to do.
Yes.
Compared to this. You got his perspective, and we moved through the tunnel from behind him instead of watching something happen on a horizontal plane, which I feel like was very new. And again, because I saw it in the theater as a little child, that scene was extremely stimulating and almost overwhelming. It was really scary because you felt like Aladdin. Like Kate said, it added to this. Is he going to escape? It added this extra suspense because you felt like you were riding with him.
Yes.
And I do remember thinking that animation was completely unbelievable. And now we look at it and it does look rudimentary, but that was just in the theater as a very small child. That was just one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen.
Yes. I love it. I love that you have that memory of it, too, and that it's like, it's just like every single one of these films, like, touches someone and, like, is supposed to draw out those feelings and emotions from their audience members, and I love that you still remember the first time you felt that.
Yeah.
So one more question about music really quick. Jafar doesn't have a song.
No.
He sings a reprise of Prince Ali.
Yeah.
It's not his own song.
Yeah.
But he sings a reprise of
Yeah.
Prince Ali.
And I just wanted to point that out because I always thought, like, all the Disney villains should get a song. And I know not all of them do, and Jafar is one of them, even though he's, like, one of the scariest.
You know what? I'm going to throw out there that I think that is a choice that helps him be scarier. I think that singing, no matter how well the song is written, and to be fair, there are really creepy songs that add to the character, but there are more songs that cheapen a scary character than enhance scary characters. The only one that I can think of that does the right thing is Scar's song.
Yes,
in
that's what
Lion
I was
King.
thinking too.
I was going to also say in Hunchback.
Yes!
Judge Frollo's song.
We all know how much I love that.
Yeah.
Go listen to that podcast too, by the way.
I have different feelings about that as an adult compared to a child.
Yeah.
I was just old enough when I saw it that I didn't think that movie made any sense because the storyline made no sense.
Yeah.
Because I was just old enough to understand how many holes there were in the plot line. It was a little confusing. I'll agree it's a beautiful song. I don't know that it enhanced the scariness of the character for me the way that Be Prepared enhanced the scariness of Scar, because that scared the bejesus out of me as a child.
And this isn't the Lion King podcast, which will come eventually, but to be prepared, like, before, up until that point, you're still seeing Scar as I'm going to pretend like I'm just this weird little uncle person, and now I'm with the hyenas, I'm showing my true colors, and I'm just hiding behind this facade, and I'm going to take over.
It's character introduction. The way we talked about Genie's song being character introduction, and they introduced Jafar so well with the Cave of Wonders sequence at the beginning that I think that if he had sung anything, it would have cheapened his character, and it would have cheapened how... Because he was kind of mysterious, too. We didn't spend a lot of time with him. We spent just enough that we knew that he was really creepy.
Yes.
And really scary. And I think that if he had sung anything, I just don't know how they would have worked a song in that was important to his character development, and it would have just cheapened the scariness of him.
Valid. 100%. I love that. Yeah.
I agree with that too.
Also, Kate and I decided today that Jafar looks like a really tall and scary prince.
Yeah. A little bit.
Think about it. Just think about... He does. I was like, who does he look like? It's Prince. He looks like Prince.
I love it.
You know, with the little chin strap mustache.
Oh, no.
And us being from Minnesota, we are all experts on Prince.
Yeah.
Yes. Not true.
Not true.
But we wish it was
true. But we pretend. So, we've talked a bit about our favorite, like, songs, but what's your favorite scene? Do you have a specific part that, like, sticks out to you?
I have to say it's Arabian Nights at the beginning. That when I think of the music from Aladdin and I think of the, like, it's when the shot pans up over the desert hill and the big lit up palace at night and he hits the high note of Arabian Nights, Arabian Night, you know, really, it just like you are suddenly in the world that you're going to spend the next hour and a half in. It's there and it's in your face and it's so beautiful. And I know now as like an adult that it's an animated fake thing that doesn't necessarily represent any type of Arabian culture well. But as a child, that was extremely mysterious and exciting to me to be entering this world. And I think that the combination of that shot with that music just like is Aladdin to me. It starts the journey of the entire show. And I just don't think that the movie would be as good without that introduction.
Absolutely. So the remake is coming out in a few weeks. What are your initial thoughts on that?
I have opinions.
Okay, I'm going to start with a general, and then Kate's going to launch into something else that we both agree with. I'm excited for this one because I feel like a few of the remakes have been disappointing lately. And I really feel like from the trailer and from what I've seen and heard about it, that it's going to be good and it's going to be one that should have happened and isn't just one that is happening to say that it happened and make some money. I like the casting. I think that it's, with the exception of one, and it's not that person's fault, and Kate's going to talk about that. It's not the person's fault that got cast. It's just difficult to accept that Will Smith is the genie. Kate, go.
I know he's a very popular actor, has been for a long time. I personally just don't like him. I don't like his acting style. Fresh Prince was fun back in the 90s, but I've never really seen him in anything that I'm like, oh my gosh, he's incredible. He's just Will Smith in everything to me. And plus, like, I'm already going in with biased opinions against Will Smith. Mm-hmm. And it's the genie. It's Robin Williams. And
exactly.
It hurts to try to even tackle that, knowing that he is no longer here, and like, it just hurts physically to think about anyone trying to tackle it. And I think most people have that opinion. It'll be interesting to see what he does with the character differently, you know, how he makes it his own. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Maybe I'll go in, because I am looking forward to seeing this. You know, I do love the story of Aladdin. I think they have an opportunity to tweak things, make it a little different than the animated film, and kind of put a new spin on it for a more modern audience. Not that it's been such a long time. It's only been like 26 years. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see that. And hopefully Will Smith, you know, no one can copy Robin Williams, obviously. Hopefully he'll kind of do something a little different in order to deviate and kind of make it his own, and hopefully he'll prove me wrong.
And from what I've seen, I think that he will, and I am hoping that the reason that choice was made was because they really realized that we have to completely 180 the character. It needs to be a very unique version of the genie, and they don't want people to even be able to compare them. Because you can't compare them. The other thing that I just thought of as you were talking about Will Smith and his acting style was that, you know, he is an actor like Robin Williams that doesn't disappear into a role. When you watched Robin Williams, no matter how good it was him. He sounded like him, he looked like him, he acted like him. Will Smith is the same. I have enjoyed a lot of his more action movies. I like Men in Black. I liked the adaptation of iRobot that he was in. I don't think anyone can do a very good adaptation of anything by Isaac Asimov, because it would have to be like 4 days long in order to do that. But, so I generally like his acting style. And because he has such a specific style, I think that's an interesting choice, is that Robin Williams for Genie was a strong choice. He was going to be Robin Williams as the Genie, and this is going to be Will Smith as the Genie. And I hope that that's how they played it, that they're going to have him be himself, because I think that that's the best way that you can really pay, homage to Robin Williams as Genie, is that he was himself in the Genie, and that you can do a good job of being the Genie by letting your true performance come out and really having it be yours and owning the part.
No matter who was going to be cast as the Genie, it is going to be hard. And so I agree. Hopefully it is such a different Genie that we can kind of separate them, apples and oranges.
Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate their choice in casting Aladdin and Jasmine as actors that people really aren't familiar with. Mm-hmm. I think that I enjoyed the Beauty and the Beast remake, but I think that was a strike against them by casting Emma Watson. I know everyone was like, oh, she's so perfect, she is Belle, whatever. But I think it could have strengthened it if they had cast someone who was an unknown, who was a better singer.
Yeah.
They cast way too many well-known people in that because everyone loves Beauty and the Beast and wants to be in it, especially since the stage version is also like everyone's favorite thing to do on stage. No, I completely agree that I'm glad that they have more fresh faces in this and that they have one or two more recognizable people, because yes, I'm sorry, it ruined Beauty and the Beast, especially when you're going to include the original songs.
Absolutely.
I don't need to hear anyone other than Angela Lansbury sing Mrs. Potts.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason. I love Emma Thompson, but you're not Angela Lansbury, so why?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when it's like, because the furniture was animated in that. I know we're talking about Aladdin, but the furniture was animated in that. So to me, I'm like, why is the voice different? If it's if these people are still alive and you're not going to use the actual human in this, why are you changing nothing about the script and nothing about the music when, like, the music is written so specifically for that voice that it just is a disappointment. I really thought that, so one of my favorite male performances ever on, like, singing-wise in an animated film is Gaston, because he is a big, booming, operatic baritone.
Yes.
That just belts it out in a way that you don't hear in a lot of modern films. You hear that in the older animated films. So, anyway, like, I just don't like when they choose the wrong voice actors and then try to something for, especially those of us who grew up with Disney with our little cassette tapes of all of those songs, and that voice in that song is so married. Like, I really hope, I'm trying not to get too excited about this new version, because it's just, I've been pleasantly surprised and then also extremely disappointed. So
yes, I would agree. There have been huge misses, but also huge hits. Like, and I think with the remakes that they're making, it does better when they make a lot of changes and that they're good changes. Like Cinderella is by far the best remake I've seen thus far.
Yes,
because it is such a nod to that nostalgia, that classic, but in such a new and beautiful way. And it was colorful and it felt like a fairy tale and it felt connected to the story, but it was so new. So for me, leading up to this Aladdin remake, I've been really worried about it. And honestly, I didn't feel better until I heard them sing A Whole New World in that one trailer. I was like, okay, I feel better. Because it made me really excited. Like, I can't wait to hear them in these songs, and I am hoping that they make changes to the story to make it fresh and interesting, and like we said with Jasmine, change her character a little more.
Yep.
For sure.
And if the singing voices are there, that's fine. I think that was my problem with Beauty and the Beast, is I just don't think it's okay to teach actors to sing for singing parts. I think that there are plenty of phenomenal actors who are trained singers who can do it. And I don't understand why people don't like voice dubbing, that's like the Disney's like hallmark is having someone do the talking and another person do the singing.
Aladdin is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Lea Salonga is just, I could go on for days. No, but that is something that every time a new movie musical comes out, whether it's a Broadway adaptation and they cast all these big names, it just hurts my soul. I'm like, you know how many phenomenally talented, I could get on my soapbox, phenomenally talented singers and actors there are that no one has ever heard of that would do this part so much more justice than the famous person.
And Aladdin is also a very successful stage adaptation of a Disney musical, as is Beauty and the Beast. As I mentioned before, it is, I mean, I think every high school... Ever. I've been in it. Kate's been in it. Have you been in a stage version of Beauty and the Beast? You have not yet. But, like, most theater people have done a version of it, right? And so you are so used to hearing good singers sing those songs that when the movie came out with non-trained singers, it was like, ugh! And Aladdin is the same way. I've seen the stage version of Aladdin. I enjoyed it as a stage adaptation. They made just enough changes that it was fun, and they had phenomenally talented people playing all of the roles. And so you just hope it's like, the music is such an important part that if the music is good, I will be on board.
The one other thing I'm worried about is it feels very Bollywood, and I don't have a problem with that. Like, Bollywood is great. I love Bollywood films. They're great. But it's like, okay, but this is Arabian. Like, and it feels a little too Indian. And I'm a little bit like, what's going on? I don't know. I look at all the other ones, like Mulan, China. Like, they're this huge company. They've done their research before, and they could do it again. Like, give credit where it's due. This is an Arabian tale. Let's do that. And I'm not going to say that's going to inhibit my enjoyment of the film, because I like Bollywood films, and it's going to look cool and be awesome. But yeah, I've just seen some backlash already about it. And it's true, because there's such a huge spotlight on it. They do have a lot of... They're going to get backlash no matter what. No matter what they do. But, yeah, I'll be interested to see the final product and see really what it is. But it just kind of opens up that door of conversation of, like... Yeah, like... Should we think of it as this imaginary place... And should, like, a lot of those be that way? Or should we keep the Mulan story in China where it is? Can we keep the, Beauty and Beast story in France? Can we keep the Arabian story in Arabia?
And I think that Aladdin is unique there. I will say that I think that a lot of their other culturally based movies make me a little bit more angry at certain things that they've done, but because Aladdin goes so off the rails in so many ways, I think that it was the most successful setting. Like with Pinocchio's head popping up in it, like stuff's happening that's just a little bit more off the wall. And I think that it'll be interesting to see, because it is a big risk to take what is a safely generic movie, in my opinion, and try to give it a context is going to be... It's a risk, and I'm excited to see how they do it and if they're able to pull it off. Disney does not have a very strong track record of being able to, so I would be surprised if they did. But it's a big risk to take a very generic movie and try to give it a context.
And at least they're taking that risk.
Yes.
I applaud them for that, because, they could do more of it. It's just, I see so much good animation done from other, studios that are so well done in their cultural context.
Yes.
Like Kubo and the Two Strings.
Oh, yes.
And Book of Kells, Song of the Sea. They just do such a fabulous job of staying within their cultural context of those mythical stories.
Yes.
And I just want to see more of that. How do you feel about Aladdin? Like, just in general, like, is he one of those guys that you had a crush on when you were little?
We were talking about that.
Can I read you one of my notes? People who know me are going to laugh. My note about Aladdin is that Aladdin is short. So that's how I feel about Aladdin. He was short.
Laura's very tall, so...
I feel like oftentimes people are like, oh, Aladdin was so cute.
Mm-mm.
Oh, Aladdin wasn't wearing a shirt. He just wasn't, he wasn't one of... he wasn't one of the ones that I was like, he wasn't my favorite, let's put it that way.
I like Aladdin and Jasmine as a couple. I did not personally have a crush on Aladdin as a child. But I liked them as a couple.
They are.
They're just short. I don't know.
There's a lot of, like, they're animated characters. There's a lot of sexual tension there. I'm just going to throw that out there.
The little scene when first of all, Jasmine, you are so naive. You are, like, going up ladders and off into this scary little room with this guy who you just met. Because he helped you not get your arm chopped off. So just follow him wherever you're going to go.
Brought you back to his bachelor pad.
I know. You're like, you're breaking all of the rules. You haven't told anyone where you're going. You're like going off with a guy by yourself.
Did you bring
because he's cute and he helped you, right? But that scene, Kate and I were commenting as adults, were like, they built up the sexual tension really fast in this. Like, they really like each other. Wow. That's all.
I mean, they are attractive cartoon
and they
characters.
kind of had to do that because I feel like this is another example of the how quickly it goes from, like, we rode on the carpet for an hour and now we're getting married. So, like, that first scene was kind of important, but I did think, like, I think that's another reason, like, their love story is so underdeveloped, even though it's a really important part of the show. It's more about, like, him understanding himself, and then it's like, oh, I understand myself now, so love me. I don't know. He just wasn't my favorite from, like, a little girl liking her prince.
So who is your Disney prince crush?
Prince Philip! Oh my God! Yes! He opens his mouth and he just sings with that beautiful, like, 1950s. Voices don't sound like that anymore.
Oh my gosh, that's my answer
Once
too.
Upon a Dream, and they're like waltzing through the forest with his tiny little hips and his broad shoulders. Oh my God, Prince Philip is the best.
And that whole story is mostly about him. Like,
I know.
That's true.
And he goes off and, like, you know, saves her and fights.
I also feel like I
love
him
Prince Philip.
because Sleeping Beauty isn't stupid. Maleficent just got her, you know? She
Yeah.
got her! And someone's gotta go get her out of the tower. It's gonna be Prince Philip. You know, it's not her fault.
And
so I like them.
And he's just so in love when he comes back to the...
I know.
Well, back to the castle.
I love Prince Philip so much.
Plus he's cute.
He's so cute.
I really like Flynn Rider. I feel like that's kind of a generic answer.
No, it's true though.
But oh my gosh. And it's more so that I love...
It's because she loves Zachary Levi. She's in love with Zachary Levi.
I'm in love with Zachary Levi. He's the best.
Kate.
He's such a nerd.
He is. You need to watch Tangled the series.
I do watch it.
Okay.
I just haven't fully caught up.
You haven't caught up because he sings this wonderful song at the end of season 2 and it kills me.
Oh, I love him so much. But when I was a kid, I mean, I'm trying to think. I definitely was not a Beast girl.
Oh no.
Oh no! When he transforms into a human, and he's got long blonde hair. I'm like, ew, chop it off.
Okay, can I say about Beast again? Animators, what's happening when he does his, like, pretty man transformation? He's so tall and then at the end, he's like the same height as Belle. I'm like, when did you get so damn short and stocky? When did, like, that was, like, you immediately, the hair was already a hard sell with a little girl. Like, there's just too much hair.
Yeah.
And then he was so short. Guys, I have a height problem. He was short. Princes should be tall.
I also like Prince Eric, though.
Prince Eric doesn't sing.
He doesn't sing, but, oh. Yeah.
I would also say Eugene for sure, but the reason why I say no is because, like, Eugene and Rapunzel are so much the perfect Disney couple, and I want the best for them that I can't even have a crush on him. Because I just need them to be together.
Do you realize we just had a 10-minute conversation about crushes on cartoon characters?
You know,
yeah, this is a lot of
It's called the Disney generation, okay?
Oh, dear.
Anyways.
So what have you guys been watching recently? Anything animated or just Game of Thrones?
I've been watching Game of Thrones. I've been watching things other than Game of Thrones. What have I been watching? I was talking to you about this off recording, but I recently rewatched Yellow Submarine. I watch that pretty regularly. I am fully aware that it is an animated drug trip, but my mom let me watch it as a child, and I just think that it is wonderful and full of fantasy, and it is so entertaining, and it's an animated music video for their album, and I just thoroughly enjoy watching it. It is on Amazon Prime streaming right now if anyone would like to go watch it. I just think that it's fabulous, especially if you love the Beatles.
Yeah, that is actually on my list, so we'll have to talk about that sometime.
Yes.
We've just been so busy recently. I feel like I haven't gotten to watch anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't know, Community's a really good show. That's like the last thing I've watched. It's been a busy couple weeks.
Yeah, busy.
What have you been watching, Kelly?
Oh man, I watched so many things. But since we're on the Disney track, I'll tell you what I'm watching on the Disney channels. Just caught up with DuckTales, and there's actually a new episode that came out today, so I'm gonna have to catch up on that one. Woo! Exactly.
Every time anyone says the name DuckTales, it just has to be followed by a woo.
And I just absolutely love those characters, and I love this reboot, and I love it's just so fun. It's so fun. And then Star vs. the Forces of Evil is coming to a close too right now. And that is one of those shows that started out so it's this silly, funny little cartoon that's quirky and weird. And then by the end of it, you're like, oh, this whole thing has been a deep look into colonialism and equality. What the crap just happened? And it's so good. And Star vs. the Force of Evil, I'm always shocked by just how real the dialogue feels. It's like, it is just absolutely hilarious, and I love it, and go watch it. The end.
Can I say, and you can edit this out, not because we were just having a conversation about this the other day, about watching things, not sitting down to watch them, but being pleasantly surprised when they're on. I am going to give a shout out to Arthur.
Yes!
I love Arthur. I loved it as a child. I am never disappointed when my nieces or nephews are watching Arthur. Yeah. I will watch it with them. I am tempted to pick Arthur when nothing else is on my television.
Same.
I just think that it is so entertaining and is written so well. And is just, I haven't seen any of the new episodes, but I know they still cycle in some of the older ones from when we were children.
Yeah.
And I think they're animated really, really well.
They are.
And I think that the amount of adult humor that was peppered into them, we were just talking about the musical episode the other day, that I think everyone our age has all those songs memorized.
Absolutely.
So that would be my recommendation, is the next time you are flipping through and you're tempted to pick Arthur, watch an episode of Arthur.
Yes. There are certain quotes from that show that my family still uses, because Laura and I similarly were we grew up on PBS Kids.
Yep.
Because we were no cable households.
Yep.
And that was just all that we ever watched in my house was Arthur. Mm-hmm. And there's so many different references to the show and quotes that we still kind of cycle around in my family. It's always really fun.
The sound DW makes when she sucks her breath in is something that my family does all the time. That one? Oh my god.
Can I just talk about one moment that I love? There's an episode, there's a character named Francine. And she has some rage issues for a third grader. And there's an episode where they're so concerned about her anger management that they're worried that her head is going to pop off. And there's this fantasy sequence where she does indeed get so angry that her head pops up and flies across the town, and then it lands in someone's lawn, and the head is just sitting there smiling, going, "My, what a beautiful lawn." And that is something that we reference all the time in my family.
My family, it's the DW sound, and it was the episode with Art Garfunkel. Where he sings a song about Buster Baxter went away and he came back. Like, for no reason, every member of my family will just randomly be like, Buster Baxter went away and he came back. Like, Arthur just will live on in all of us. We should just do an Arthur episode.
we almost have a whole
Arthur episode.
Oh my goodness.
I love Arthur.
Buster Baxter. Oh my goodness, that's too good.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for talking about Aladdin with me. For a second, I was like, what were we talking about? Because we went on a huge tangent about Arthur.
You're welcome.
So thank you so much. And will be interested to hear your thoughts on the remake when it comes out and we watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fanimated Podcast to stay up to date. You can also get in touch with us by emailing us at fanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. The art for this podcast is done by me. You can find me on Instagram at CandorDraw. The music is provided by the folks at Purple Planet, and a huge thank you to Kate and Laura. I'll talk to you soon, and in the meantime, stay tuned and stay animated.
Because we're in this little point where you might edit this out. Can I
will.
say something you might want to edit out?
Yes.
Or you can leave it in. If we're going to talk about animation and animation choices, it really makes me confused and upset that Aladdin doesn't have nipples. That's all. We don't have to keep talking about it. Just edit that right out. But I just don't like that choice.